but good. And when we don't even know sometimes what He's doing and we don't understand it, I can tell you, I know He's still nothing but good. Even when you don't know what He's doing and you can't figure it out and you're wondering what's going on, and some of you are like that. Some of you are in that spot right now. What's going on? What is God doing? I promise you that God is still good. Even though you can't see, He's still good. 1 Corinthians chapter number 16, this evening. Thanks again for the song and all the songs and the singing. And thank you for being here on a Wednesday night. Sure appreciate it. 1 Corinthians 16. Just one little verse here, and then I'm going to take you to Numbers chapter 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 16. And let's look at verse number 5. Now I come to you now I will come to you when I shall pass through Macedonia, for I do pass through Macedonia. And it may be that I will abide, yea, in winter with you, that ye may bring me on my journey whithersoever I go. For I will not see you now by the way, but I trust to tarry a while with you, if the Lord permit. But I will tarry at Ephesus until Pentecost. And this is the verse I want you to get. I'm just going to talk a little bit about this a little bit tonight, and then we'll go to one other place to talk about it there. He says in verse number 9, for a great door and effectual is opened unto me, and there are many adversaries. I had to look up what effectual means. You might know, I had to look it up. Effectual means producing an effect, or the effect desired or intended. So there's a great door. First of all, there's a door opened. And on top of that door, not just any door, there's a door open that can have a really great effect. It can do something. It can accomplish something. And a desired, intended effect. Or it can mean this, having the adequate power or force to produce an effect. So there's a door open, and there's the force and everything necessary needed for it to have a great effect. But what you also see, and I wrote down this at that spot, is an opportunity. An opportunity. But I want you to see what it says in the text as well. It says, but there are many adversaries. So I write down opportunity. I write down three things. Opportunities. Every time you see an opportunity, you're going to always find an obstacle. You're always going to find there's something great opportunity, but there's always going to be obstacles to those opportunities. And then what you also find in the text is you'll see opposition that you have. You'll have some things push against you in what you're trying to do. I want you to move from that spot. That's a truth that you can find in many places. And I want you to go to Numbers chapter number 13. And we talked about this the other day a little bit. And I'll talk to you a little bit about it tonight. Numbers chapter number 13. And I want you to think about this when it comes to them going into the promised land. Numbers chapter number 13. And obviously at the beginning of Numbers 13, He sends out men to spy out the land because God has taken them. He's taken them out of Egypt, but He's taking them somewhere. They've got someplace they're going. God just didn't bring them out just to bring them out. He brought them out to bring them into something. We talked about it the other day. He had a plan of what He was going to do. Now, this is why that song was so good about God is nothing but good, is they couldn't see the end of the plan. They don't get it. But all they had to do, I want you to get this, all they had to do was follow the leader. The leader knows the plan. The leader's nothing but good. All you have to do is, you don't have to worry about the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan. You just got to worry about, what do I do today? What do I follow Him? Now, and I want you to understand that when there is an opportunity for you to find something that God's trying to do in your life, what you can bet on through the Bible, you'll see it, that there's obstacles and there's going to be opposition. If you're not careful, listen to a statement I'm making, I'll read it to you. If you're not careful, you will miss the opportunity because you get too focused on the obstacles and the opposition. And you miss the opportunity. Because you're trying to step out into something, to do something, and next thing you know, you hit one problem. And this is what we tend to do. In our circles, we do it really badly. We hit one problem, we start thinking, well, God must not be in this. Why? Because I hit one bad thing. You know, that's how God works. You know, God's just up there waiting for you to step a half inch out of line so He can hit you with a lightning bolt. That's just the way our God is, right? No, it's not really. That's what you've thought. But He's not up there trying to do that. But there is a truth in the Bible. Here's the truth. when you start trying to step into something that God does have, you will find it, there'll be opposition, and there will be obstacles. Let's read this in Numbers chapter number 13. In verse number 26, it says, "And they went and came to Moses, they went out to spy the land, and to Aaron, and to all the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh, and brought back word unto them, and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land." Here's the opportunity, the fruit of the land. "And they told him and said, We came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey. And this is the fruit of it." This is the opportunity. This is the thing that God's been leading them to this whole time. This is the plan that God had for their life all along. They didn't see it. They didn't know it. They didn't understand the different journeys along the way. We've talked about this before, that immediately they come out of the wilderness. They're trying to figure out where to go. He takes them to a mountain, and He sets them there for a year. They sit at the base of a mountain while He speaks to them and gives them commandments and gives them ideas for the future. And I can imagine that if it was me and I was sitting there for 1 year going, "This is boring." Moses just keeps telling us about what tabernacles are going to look like, and what priest officers are going to be like, and what blood's going to be, and what the clothing is going to be, and a knop, and a this, and a this, and a knop, and all the little things you got to put on all the tabernacle. And if you've ever read through that before, you go, "Man, that's boring." And you're sitting there and you're going, "What are we doing next? And what are we doing next?" And I would be that way. What's next? The first thing is just sit here for a little while. I'm doing something on my timetable. But what is it going to be? I'm anxious about what it's going to be. You just sit here and learn about me for a little while. I've got something figured out for you. I know the end. You don't. You just follow me. And so he sat there, and you're waiting. And then shortly after that, if you go through and read, shortly after they've been sitting there for a little while, he starts getting them organized. He starts putting leaders in place. And he starts talking about, this is going to be the leader of this group, and then this is going to be the leader of this group. And he's organizing the mob. He's taught them about who He is, who God is. And now God's organizing the mob, getting them ready. Why? Because you can't really go anywhere until you have the right organization there. There's a good book I've got in my office that says that if you're ever going to try to figure out where you're going to go, you don't have to first figure out where you're going. First, you got to figure out who you have to have on the bus to get there. But that's not even it. It's not just you have the right people on the bus. You got to put the right people in the right places on the bus, is what they said. You got to have the right people in the right places, because we're going on a journey. We've got to have the right people. Let me take a step back and just say this. I've said this before about this church. And I said it just the other day as well. And maybe you were in here and heard it. But I'm not driving this bus. When Pastor Robinson was the pastor of this church, really honestly, he's the pastor of the church, but Pastor Robinson wasn't even driving this bus. I feel like I've said it before, I'm in the passenger seat. God's driving this bus. God's directing where we're going to go. And just like that, in that situation, what would have happened is somebody might have said, "Well, how long do we wait here?" And Moses would have said this probably, "I don't have a clue." When the pillar moves, we move. If the pillar sits here for a year, we sit here for a year. If the pillar sits here for a month, we sit here for a month. When the pillar moves, guys, we'll say, "Let's go," and we're going to move. Right before the pillar began to move, God started putting the people in the right places. I think it's interesting about our church and what God's done over the years. I wouldn't have planned some of the things that God's done. I wouldn't have set up the organization of what we're doing. I've known Micaiah since Micaiah was a baby, an infant. I mean, he was an infant, and I think Jeremiah may have just been born. I don't know if he was born yet. I've known them since that time. There's no way you would have put in my mind that he was going to be one of the associate pastors at a church, that I was even going to be pastoring a church, let alone he'd be an associate pastor in that church. I led Dylan's dad to the Lord on his front step at his house, and I may have even paddled Dylan at some point in his life. I don't know. I didn't never have to tell you. But I mean, I've been working with him since he was a little kid. No way in my mind you would have got me thinking that this is what's going on. But I don't have to figure all that out. All I got to do is be faithful to God. God can put the teams together and the people together. I'm just thinking about Brother Walt. First time I met Brother Walt, we drove to his house, and I said, "Brother Walt, you live a long way from this church. There's a church across the street you can go to. You're a long way from our church." And I really felt like, I don't know, I felt like maybe I crossed the boundary when I said that, because I was like, you don't have to come here, you can go over there. And he looked at me like, we're going to your church. I said, okay, I just wanted to make sure you knew that, it's okay if you went somewhere else. And he really had that sergeant major look at it whenever I said it. But I didn't, in my mind, when I knocked on that door, I didn't knock on the door and say, well, there's the future leader of the Masters Club. That isn't how that went. But God puts the pieces together while we're all sitting here trying to figure out what's going on. And while we're learning about God, God's going, all right, it's okay to sit still for a little bit because I'm going to put this piece in, and that piece in, and this piece in, and that piece in. And God's putting together teams. Pastor Miller, God's putting together these teams. And so you look at this, there's the opportunity. We're going, he's saying we're going somewhere. Look at verse number 28. But I want you to see the obstacle. The obstacles and the opposition. Nevertheless, the people, this is what their report is. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled. Now, I wrote down two things. I thought about the people, that's the opposition, and the walls, that's the obstacles. Just they're very great. Moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land in the south, and the Hittites and Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell in the sea, or by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land where they searched out unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which they have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw are men of great stature. And there we saw giants. This is the land, the obstacles, and the giants, the opponents, or the opposition. It says, we saw giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. Now think about this. This is the way they had the view of themselves. We were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Now, how do you know what you were in their sight? How do you know? You know what? You were just letting fear dictate your future. You weren't, you know what you are? You're not grasshoppers, you're giant killers. That's who you are. That's who they were. But they got it in their mind the wrong thing. And I'm saying to you that when you look at things, opportunities are there that God is leading. Not that you're trying to create, but that God is leading you into opportunities. But with every opportunity, there's going to be obstacles and there's going to be opposition. Do you know, I can turn you forward and look, you can get to Joshua chapter number 17, and there was, I think it was Ephraim, maybe in Manasseh, those folks, and this is what they did. They said, man, we got the land in front of us. Look at all that we've got out in front of us, and we can possess a lot, but, we want more. We want more land. And they went to Joshua and said, we want more land. And Joshua said, you haven't even inhabited what you've got already. And this is what he said. They said, yeah, but there's chariots and there's giants in there. He says, you can take those people out. And here's the other thing he said, you can go out, all that land that you possess, if you would go out and chop the trees down and put some effort into it, you've got more land. You just got to put the effort into it. Do you know what stops people from reaching their potential or reaching what God's got for them? I wrote down two things. One is fear, and one is laziness. If you're going to do something, if you're going to step into what God has for you, it's going to take you overcoming fear, and it's going to take you putting effort into it. And so, when you look at that, I don't know what God may have you doing in your life on an individual basis. And I'm not saying that the thing you're facing is the promised land. I'm not saying that the thing that the church will be going towards is the promised land. I think that would be taking an application that is not necessarily in there, but I think you can take this application. When God opens a door for you and God is directing a path for you, you don't have to fear. You can trust God. And when you let fear dictate, you will, what they did a lot of times is they would go back to their default. They'd go back to, it was better back there where they used to be. It wasn't better back there where they used to be. It wasn't better. See, what you do is you start painting the picture. It's better back there. Yeah, there was some things back there that listen now, it wasn't better, it was familiar. And it's easy to go backwards because you know what you always have a fear of? Everybody can do this. This is real easy. You have a fear of the unknown. And so you go back to what's known. What's easy instead of going forward. And so I'm just going to say to you that as God directs your path, as God's doing something in your path, trust God. God's been nothing but good. Trust God with your future. Trust God with what He's doing. Ask God for clear, open doors. Ask God to close doors that you shouldn't go into and open doors that you should go into. And trust Him as He does that He knows the end from the beginning. We've got to trust Him. I'm going to do something here in a minute. This is going to be a little bit different service tonight. If you didn't get the text or the or any of the Facebook stuff, we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. And I want to present something to you for our church that I think will be helpful for our church and for you to know and for you to be praying about. And so we're going to end the service here. What we're going to do is, if you can get us a song, it's a little bit early, but if you can get us a song, then and we're going to stand. Let's stand if we could. We'll close in prayer with this message. It's just a thought tonight to get you to think. Let's stand. I know everybody's like, do we stand? I don't know. It's too early. But we're going to have an invitation time. I'll let you pray. And whatever you're facing tonight in your own life, whatever you might be going through, you're saying, hey, there's some opportunities that are in front of me. I'm not sure what to think about them. As you enter those opportunities that you're going through, pray, God, give me clear direction, give me guidance. Listen real close. As you're going into those opportunities, pray, God, give me clear direction, open doors, closed doors, and God, help me to not be fearful about my future. Help me not to be lazy about my future. Father, help me not to read too much into every bump that I hit in the road. I hit a bump, oh, it must be that God's not in it, and I got to run backwards. Don't do that to yourself. So tonight, during this invitation time, this will be your time to talk to God about it. And we won't move on until you get through praying. But it's your time to just take this application, trust your faithful God, speak to your God about what you're dealing with, and ask Him to direct your path, to make it plain, and not to question it, not to be fearful. Lord, we ask You to please bless tonight. I pray that You'd work in the lives of these people. Lord, whatever their issue is, whatever they're facing, I pray that You would help them to trust You as they move forward. Lord, not to be fearful, not to be lazy, not to see the obstacles and run the opposite direction, but, Lord, to trust You as they approach everything that You have in their future. Lord, You know the good things You have prepared for us. Father, You know that. We just have to be faithful to follow You as You direct. And Father, I pray that You'd help us to do that. Work in the lives of these people, work as a church. Help us in Jesus' name. Amen. She's going to play, give you a chance to pray tonight. Many at an altar.